Welcome all to the first rendition of the Student Agencies podcast. I'm here. My name is Thomas Bailey. I'm the current president of Student Agencies for 2025 and super excited to be here, joined by Belle Zachary, who overlapped with me for a brief year when I was a freshman, but really excited to have her on today and be able to share a bit about her experience, my experience, and all the things that Student Agencies has done for both of us. So I'd love to, Belle, if you want to give yourself a bit more of a formal introduction, tell us a bit about what you studied at Cornell, what your roles were at SAI, and what you're up to now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. So I graduated in May of 2023 and started working at PIMCO on our institutional client management team. So we had our pension team, where I was in Newport Beach for a year, and then transitioned to a corporate strategy position kind of like about a year later and have been in New York doing that since. Um, just take a step back at student agencies, I was an assistant manager for Big Red and then the director of HR and then the vice president of operations, while also double concentrating within our applied economics program at Cornell in accounting and strategy, all of which has like really truly prepared me for what I've been able to do post grad. And even like now, I'm actually like preparing to like get ready for applying formally to a different role. And all the parallels that I'm bringing up of like my current seat, it's kind of like been a very natural progression from okay, I was using like the stories from like student agencies to get this, and now those have built upon each other to like kind of set me up for the future.
Yeah, awesome. So, kind of first question that I have from that is, what's the most common story you tell about student agencies, whether in an interview or otherwise? And I'm sure there are different answers, so I'd love to hear both.
I think that like in professional setting, um, the things that really, like, have applied most are that, like, when you're a student, you are put in a lot of positions where, like, you have to be prepared for your own behalf or for, like, other students, but all things considered, a lot of the times, like, a group project or an exam is pretty low stakes. But once you're put into a position where you really have, like, an actual company and, like, a board and all these other situations that, like, are really relying upon you, the stakes are a lot higher, the pressure is a lot higher, and getting, like, the firsthand experience before you have to do that at work where it's, like, sort of an intermediate step between college and, like, clubs and then, like, an actual job. So you just get better at being uncomfortable and, like, performing well under pressure. So I would say, like, there's a lot of stories that apply to that, but, like, doing working on, like, a lot of the business development stuff that I did by, like, last year or even, like, changing the way that we were doing a lot of hiring when I was a junior, and then even back to when I was a sophomore too, of like, everything with Big Red is a story. I think those are like the most applicable things. Again, maybe not everything you're going to use is like the sophomore experience working at a moving company where you're applying jobs. But I think that there's a lot of anecdotes from that you can use to help you gain the stories that you do use.
Sure. Give us an anecdote. What was a high stakes situation that you had to deal with?
I mean, like there was a lot. In terms like what I would like actually like use. Again, I think the biggest things were really like a lot of the working with like I think it's called app dev. Yeah, it's called app dev. Which was like a tech team that was like in eHub and like kind of like getting them looped in on a lot of projects, which like allowed us to do like different analysis and like kind of like work more in tangency with other businesses. We also like almost acquired an app. There was another like financial startup that we like started working with and kind of like navigating like those transactions and like how those deals were gonna be if they were actually gonna fall through or not fall through, if they were gonna become like reality and like doing a financial analysis and like also understanding how to frame it, especially for Kyle at the time, is it was like he was a little bit not not necessarily like older, but like less touch with like, okay, yeah, this like social media app that's connecting kids with like clubs and restaurants. It's like maybe a little bit easier for like me to see what the value is than for who's like maybe not as involved with app development.
All makes sense. And then what's something when you're talking to your friends about student agencies, what do you tell them?
I mean, like, it like, all goes back to Big Red. Everything is back to Big Red. I mean, like, I think there's so few situations that I will ever be in that are as stressful as, like, that was. And, like, part of it is because you're a sophomore and you don't know anything because 'cause you're 19 and you're with, 15 other kids and half of a sports team trying to figure out how to get all of campus moved in and out with 5 trucks that no one's driven before and 2 warehouses that you don't know how to operate. Um, but it always works out. And then I think like that's the most important takeaway of all of it. And I would say like from student agencies more broadly too is like it all works out. So just like don't panic because the more time you spend panicking, the less boxes you move. And like the harder it is to like actually pull yourself out of that and like regroup.
Yeah.
Is that a do you like think back on that moment during stressful situations today and go,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
fine?
Like, I mean, I had to coordinate like a lot of internal review stuff for like PIMCO like globally. Like we manage like $2 trillion. It's not as stressful as being 19 uh running around the Mac warehouse.
Right. Or like dealing with angry parents, probably.
Oh my god, yeah. I mean, like it got to a point at one year where like we put the phones like in a closet because it was like we have to focus on like getting everything done and like getting screamed at by a parent who's like, you don't know what it's like to be a student for the first time at Cornell all alone. And we're like, lady, I'm a year older than your kid. Like I did it last year. Uh yeah. Crazy stuff.
Awesome. And so,
Okay, so how would you pitch a student who's thinking about maybe joining student agencies? Like what's the upside? What's the downside?
I'll
What's the story?
like I mean in every internship, not every internship interview, but like in any setting where I had to speak about, like why are you qualified to do this? Why are you prepared to this? Why are you the right candidate? It is the most hands-on way to have all these experiences for it's like, okay, yeah, again, like not only was I like succeeding in my like club that the stakes are lower. When you have the ability to say like, okay, here are like 3 examples where I like worked with adults, worked with customers, made money, and then also like performed well. I think that that sets you apart from anyone else. And like, even just the effect of like, okay, maybe, being like the director of HR or working at Big Red wasn't directly applicable to like now working in like corporate strategy and like public pension management. But there's so many parallels again from like, you get primed early to like being good at being uncomfortable and like making good decisions and like moving faster.
yeah, 100%. That all makes sense. And can you share a specific moment or decision at SAI that sort of shaped the way you interact in a professional sense and your leadership style, as well as how you go about solving problems based on the problems you had to solve at SAI?
I think like one of the biggest things was like a couple years ago, um, when Big Red didn't get and this at this point I was a senior, so I was like 2 years removed, right? But I like still had the experience of like having that. And they got on like housing list late and there was just like all of these things going on and like the team that had been like dealing with it had been like under a lot of stress and dealing with a lot and just like maybe weren't seeing as clearly as they could have been. And at that point, the president and I sat down with Kyle. We're just like, look, like we need to step in here and like kind of help these kids out and like navigate a new plan and also like move the goalposts a little bit. And I think like that's an important thing too of like at a certain point, like done is good. And like, yeah, you want to be the best and you want to be exceptional, but like that's not always possible. And if you're striving for that, sometimes you're gonna miss the like lowest of the low hanging fruit. So it's like pause, take a step back, look at the whole situation and like see like, okay, how can we like at least, get to the like C plus point. And I still think about that now that like my intern that I had last year, I think it was very clear very early on that he was not gonna be a good fit. Where it's like instead of like trying to push this kid to see if he can do this job that we know he can't do, like let's just give him a good experience and like take a couple steps back with like what our end goal is gonna be.
Yeah, all makes sense. And so taking a step back to kind of when you were first at Cornell, what made you want to join student agencies and what did you expect out of it?
I mean, like, I'm gonna be honest. I was a sophomore who had no money, and my friend was on the. She was like one of the GMs for the Cornellian. It was like around the time of like slope day and like formals and like all of that. And then when I started working there, it was kind of like okay, like if I'm gonna have a job and I'm gonna like spend all this money and time on things, I can like think about, okay, like here's like the clubs that I'm a part of that I'm not like really gaining out of, or like I'm gonna work at like a coffee shop on campus, which like obviously like has a lot of experience that you can gain too. But if it's like we're trying to be efficient with our time, that's what makes the most sense. And I think like for me too, I was like always like pretty actively like TAing in a lot of classes. And so it made more sense to kind of consolidate everything into like one thing I was gonna put all of my time into.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that became pretty clear. Also, just knowing like the older kids that were there and like the connection that you get with like juniors and seniors like pretty immediately. And then even that too, like those kids knowing the kids that are older and like that's carried over like to now here. Cable Olsen is one of my best friends. She's 2 years older than me and was like also there. Same thing with like Charlie and Brooke and a lot of these kids who were seniors or like basically out the door by the time I was there is like a sophomore who I'm still like very much in touch with.
Yeah. Do you think alumni network has had a or what would you say the impact is that the alumni network has had on you?
I think like the first part is like just in college to be surrounded by kids who have it a little bit more figured out is like super beneficial because like you just move faster. You know, when you have someone pointing you in the right direction, being like, hey, like, you know, this is like when like the deadlines for this are due, or like if you take this class, it's gonna set you up well for this. Or even just the effect of like, okay, now you're like meeting other people who have like taken similar classes or who are like navigating even things like socially. Like a lot of it just rolls up together. And like even like anecdotally, Sammy Malhotra, who now is in law school, but at the time was like about to leave to go to JP. I had like no idea what I wanted to do. He was the director of HR and I was like stepping into that role and like we sat down. He's like, so like, what do you like? And I was like, well, I like working with people and like I really like math and like stats, but like I have no idea what I want to do with that. And he was like, okay, like look at like these roles and like other things. To this day, I've only done one interview in my life, and it was the one that he sent me, which has now become my job and like hopefully will be for like rent.
Wow. So did you have any internships while you were in college?
Yeah, so that was, like, the interview for my internship that I ended up taking, uh, and then came back full time.
And
I
how-
also did, like, a couple, like, little ones, but I wouldn't count those, like
did you feel like a pressure to balance the involvement and responsibilities of student agencies with recruiting and internship stuff?
I mean, like, for myself personally, like, I, like, tend to be, like, pretty hyperactive and, like, need to always be doing something. But I think that's, like, the nature of Cornell too. I think, like, that's the student body. That's what the kids who are there. No one's there to, like, go home and, like, nap for 6 hours a day, and, like, if they are, like, they're at the wrong school. So I think, like, when you have a group of students who are, like, kind of primed to be like that, it's not gonna take your time, and, like, you're going to pick something anyways. So you might as well be, like, in an environment too where you're surrounded by, like, more diversified group of people versus, like, a consulting club or a finance club or, like, whatever else, which obviously still have tremendous, like, value, but you're surrounding yourself and pigeonholing yourself into, like, one career path as an 18-year-old, which is, like, are you gonna be doing what you wanna do when you're 18, when you're 22, 23, 24, 25? Probably not.
Yeah. So, and how does your story and experience working for student agencies compared to your classmates that worked kind of other internships? Like we know today, a lot of students feel the pressure to get an internship. Do you feel like your experience at student agencies serve that purpose to kind of similar extent? Or do you feel like you missed out not doing the same number of internships at other firms?
I mean, like, to be candid, like, no, it doesn't. It's not the same at all. But what it does do is it puts you as front-footed as you possibly could be to get the one that you do need. And again, like, at the end of the day, like, you only really need the one your junior year. Granted, like, my freshman year, I, like, worked for, like, a company that, like, runs horse shows. I grew up riding show horses. So, like, I was, like, on the business side that summer. Um, I don't think that really there's nothing in that that I spoke to. Like, yeah, it was on my resume, but, like, it wasn't, like, stories you could just tell. It was, like, you're kind of fabricating, like, "Okay, I worked on this project, and I'm gonna make it sound great." Same thing with, like, my sophomore year. Like, I was in Ithaca doing stuff with student agencies, and then also like worked for like a newspaper, like doing your finances and like something else. But like to the same effect, it's like when someone asks you a question and you have like all of these like very clear memories that also were like very defining with stuff again, like with student agencies, that the stuff that I've spoken about, which I ultimately landing in my job, like that's what you're gonna go to. So like it's great to have other experiences, but it's like, do you want to like have a bunch of things where you have to like have a story written down that you need to like remember what to say? Or do you want to have someone ask you something and you're like, oh yeah, like let me tell you about this time that like my friends and I made $250,000 when we
Yeah, like,
Ye-
It's super authentic because you lived it.
yeah, you can just talk about it. You don't have to like again, like look for stat padding numbers.
yeah. No, 100%. It's I think authenticity is really what the student agency
Yeah.
experience brings, because unlike the other internships that at least I've had previously, it's the one thing where you drive all of what you do. And so you
Yeah.
can then say, I want to be able to say X, Y, and Z. I want to live these experiences. And it's really all up to you to kind of go live them.
Yeah. 100%.
How would you say, did you come into PIMCO with like a class of a few other people that were at the same level?
Yes. 200 globally.
200.
Globally.
Okay.
Across every
Um,
and my actual team, it's 3.
okay. And do you have a sense for the student agency's experience versus the academic experience versus other experiences that you had? How did those all set you up for your current job, especially as it relates to like your peers? Do you feel like you came in more well prepared, or were there really academic things that were better for you?
I mean, like, I nothing that I learned in school, like, directly applied. Again, like, you learn how to, like, problem solve, you learn how to, like, quantitatively look at things, you learn how to think creatively. That all is parallel. Everything I did in accounting is very parallel. But, like, the experiences that I look back to are, like, being a teaching assistant and student agencies, which, like, really prime me again for, like, you're put outside of your comfort zone and you learn how to, like, interact with a lot of different people and like hold different like leadership positions. Also, how to work with people. I mean, like I look back to, and Carson, you were here for this, but like Thomas wasn't. Like, like there was times where like we're a bunch of sophomores. We don't know how to like amicably like work together all the time. So like those are positions where you're also learning. Um, but yeah, I would say like it's really those two experiences that like drove setting me up for anything.
Awesome. What else would you want prospective students or parents of prospective students or current students to know about student agencies?
I mean, like, I think the other thing too is that like it's fun. There's like obviously a great community, but outside of stuff, I think it's like the last real time that you can devote a lot of time into something that's like maybe not quite as serious. Obviously, there's a lot of positions and roles that are very serious, and there's serious elements to everything. Um, but a lot of it is a lot more lighthearted than again sitting down and like doing a lot of like financial analysis and like only focusing on things that are like directly career related. It's a lot more fun to go like run a company with your friends. And like, when are you ever going to get to do that again where you're just driving everything? I think it's like kind of a one of one experience. And like, honestly, like lifetime, it's kind of a one of one experience. When else are you going to get to do that? And also, again, like, have like medium stakes where like you're not going to fall on your face, but like you still are getting really good experience in like how to work under pressure, how to present, how to look at like operations, do like all these other things. I think like that's kind of why it's about.
Cool. Um, Thomas, do you have any more questions?
Yeah. So I would love for you to kind of go through and summarize your time at student agencies in one sentence, if you could.
I need to like think about that a little. One sentence is tricky, but if I can use like a semicolon or something.
All right, that works. I'll give you a semicolon if you need it.
Um, I would say the biggest things that I've taken away are one, that like everything is going to work out in the end, and like two, that even when you feel like it's not, it's an opportunity to like do it better the next time. Where even if you're always going to run into situations where you're going to feel uncomfortable or you're going to feel like you're failing, but if you just like keep failing better and you like fail more, frankly, obviously not like the easy way, because like there's also some element of don't cut corners, don't be lazy, set yourself up for success. Um, but everything kind of works out. You just have to like take a breath and take some.
Yeah. Failing forward. I mean, that's the student agency's way.
Yeah, seriously.
One foot in front of the other.